Welcome, fair people of YouTube. Today we are back on Twitter with some new exciting cards. Although I'm not a big fan of this batch of cards, I guess they could have put there something more exciting, but this is still new cards with new effects and some exciting mechanics. So let's jump into it. First up, we have probably the best card in this batch of cards. It's Piercing Rune, 4 mana silver spell for Runecraft, that deals 2 damage to an enemy follower, then deals 2 damage to the leader phase. So let's for now not talk about the effect of this card, just focus on the basic of this card. So for 4 mana you deal 2 damage to a minion, that is worth about 1 or 2 mana, and you deal 2 damage to your opponent phase, that is worth about 3 mana. So the card is priced pretty well overall. You could say it's maybe overpriced by like half of play point, but overall it's a pretty solid effect that definitely is worth its cost. But then you look at the bottom text of the card, and if an allied follower evolves, change the cost of this card to 1. Now that is pretty crazy, right? You get 1 mana, deal 4 damage. Well, if you want to break through sound, you basically deal only 2 damage, but if you are playing aggro, the 2 damage phase really matters, and if you play it on like turn 5 after evolution, or yeah, probably turn 5, because if you evolve something on 4, you probably are evolving 4 drop, so you cannot fit the 1 mana spell in, but on turn 5 you are free to cast it, and it probably will kill something like Unica. It will help you with trade at like the worst case scenario, and the 2 damage phase definitely matters if you are playing aggro rune with, levies and a lot of phase damage. Overall, very solid card, pretty bad in arena. I would say in arena the 2 damage phase doesn't matter, especially on Runecraft, and you are not a big fan of spells on Runecraft. You usually want to draft minions and sigils. So in arena I would rather skip it, but it's a silver, so you won't see it very often. But in constructed, definitely boosting the archetype of aggro rune, because right now everyone is playing only D-Shift. Some are playing sigils, and there also exists aggro rune, which is definitely worse than the other two, but is definitely fun to play. So with this card I hope we'll see some play of aggro rune. Let's now move on to the next card. This is also a pretty exciting card. Moriana the Bejeweled, I hope I'm reading it correctly. 4 mana 3/3 bronze for Bloodcraft. Fanfare, recover 1 evolution point if Vengeance is active for you. So what does it basically mean? Is you cannot go over your starting evolution points. If you were going first, you will not gain first evolution point if you have not spent a single evolution point yet. At least, that's what wording says, but Cygames already has some problems with wording, so maybe you can, but let's assume you cannot, because that's how you read this wording. Like, I am very experienced in card games, and you can trust me here. How good is this card? Well, I would say it's not really too good in constructed, because it's a lot of tempo loss. Like, you play 4 mana 3/3 with no immediate effect. We already saw like 4 mana 3/3 with Vengeance with good effect. Like, we have Greyon that destroys Amulet on Vengeance. It's also a 4 mana 3/3. It is never played, even in Amulet meta. Like, mostly Amulets have countdown, but there were times like in before Darkness Evolved expansion, you were playing some very decent Amulets, like Guardian Sun was everywhere. Titania Sanctuary was also played. We had some other amulets, I can't really remember now, but amulets were played, and Guardian Sun was one of the strongest decks. So, and amulet removal was still not played at all. Like, people played Execution, and some played, like, for example, the Eating Flower from Forestcraft, the 3 mana 3/1 that from combo deals with the amulet. But I played that in my every forest deck. Oh, there were also banner decks and of course PTP decks. That's the other amulets that were being played. Alright, so this card is very similar effect to Greyon, but a bit different, right? It works the same but gives you evolution point instead of removal on amulet. And how good is that? If you want to play it on Vengeance, you probably are around turn 6, 7, depending on your deck and your opponent deck. But you gain evolution point on 7, which is semi-good, you know, you usually run out of evolution points on 7. But what do you evolve? Like, if you had something already on board, you can evolve that for face, I guess. If you are playing on an empty board, you either evolve Moriana, that will be 5/5 rush for 4 mana, which is pretty weak on turn 7. You could do better, like Alucard, for example, would do better. Or you could play a 3-drop and evolve it. So, are there any 3-drops that have such amazing evolution you are always playing them? No, there are none. There are just none. Or at least I don't know about them. But maybe we'll see more in the future expansions, or even if this expansion we don't have all the cards revealed yet. But overall I don't really like this card. It's great on Arena though. In Arena Tempoles does not matter that much. In Arena all that matters is value, and 1 additional evolution point for future turns is a lot of value. Also, if you, like, the best case scenario I can think of is like you play it on turn 9 with Beast Dominator or something like that, you get 8/8 rush on turn 9, that is very solid. Or you, like, for example, evolve Queen Vampire or 10 on 10, that's also pretty solid, but usually you have to make it work with some strong bodies that are below 6 mana or below 7, 6 and down. Overall, I don't really like this card, but definitely has some potential, and I would not be surprised if it is used in like Vengeance control decks. But the problem with Vengeance control decks is that you need to play Soul Dealer, because versus control decks you need to get on your Vengeance, otherwise your deck is not working correctly, and they may not punch you. So you have to put yourself on Vengeance, and like playing 5 cards to get on Vengeance for, you know, for -2 HP, like Razor Claw, is not that powerful. You'd rather just slap down the Soul Dealer and take away 10 of your HP. That's what I was doing before Darkness Evolved, when we had semi-control meta. I would say more control decks were played than aggro decks, and the worst control deck to deal with was Guardian Sun, and they literally would not hit you if you were playing Vampire until they can kill you, because they could easily kill you in one shot. They played powerful units, and I couldn't deal with them. Like, my Righteous Devil was not killing anything. We didn't have Dance of Death, we only had Execution, which would work. I couldn't even Revelation the board, except for 8 mana. And I was just playing Soul Dealer back then as a 2-off to, you know, get on Vengeance versus control decks. You don't usually want to play 3 Soul Dealers, because versus aggro decks it's usually a dead card. If you can cast it for cheap health cost, you are usually dead to burn already, so it doesn't really matter. But versus control decks, if we see control decks a lot on the ladder, Soul Dealer is something you might want to pay attention to. So if you have Soul Dealers right now and you want to disenchant them, I would rather want you to keep it, because, you know, you will not lose value on disenchantment, and Soul Dealer might really be played in control meta. But let's move on, because we don't have many cards in this video, but I still wanna keep it a bit quicker. Next card we have Owl Guardian. That's another exciting card for Dragon. It's a 6 mana 4/6 taunt or ward that, if you evolve it, randomly discards one of the lowest cost cards in your hand and deals 5 damage to an enemy follower. You can target that, it's not a random effect. It's really powerful effect, but it's not really synergistic with discard mechanic, because you don't really care about playing a 6 mana 4/6 ward in your discard dragon deck. Why? Because the discard dragon must be aggressive. You are basically fueling your deck by discarding cards and drawing them again. You are decking out so fast. Imagine like PTP, but whenever you activate, you draw additional 9 cards. Like, you always draw cards. You are keeping yourself at full hand, and you are cycling so fast. Like PTP Forest, if they were forced to have the Dragomancer Scripture on board, or Dragomancer Rite on board, they would never play PTP, because they would deck out before they get 30 shadows, like literally. Well, probably not, but it would be really hard for them. But this card is really sick in Ramp Dragon. Like, how do you not play it in Ramp Dragon? You can discard one of, I don't know, you can keep your Dragon Wings versus control matchup and discard them with this. You can discard your Ivory Drake. Like, this effect is much better than draw a card. You are literally killing enemy unit for only evolution point, and you still gain +1/+1. The +1/+1 sometimes will bite you in the butt because of Tsubaki and Giant Slayer, but most of the time you are not versus Swordcraft, so it doesn't matter that much. And this card is crazy good. Like, this is literally 9 out of 10, but you are not playing it in your Discard Dragon. You can play it in Ramp Dragon, you can play it in Arena with a lot of success, but you cannot play it in Discard Dragon, and that doesn't even make me sad. Like, I like when Discard Dragon gets boosted by new cards, because the deck is very interesting and really underrated, I would say, but they simply don't have enough support from the side games to make the deck work. At least right now, before the expansion. Alright, let's move on. We have Feathered Patroller, 3 mana 3/2 for Shadowcraft, Ward, Necromancy 4, deal 2 damage to an enemy follower. How often does it matter? Not really often. Unless you can get 4 Necromancy on turn 3, then it's a huge tempo swing. But as a 3 mana 3/2 ward, it's not really that good. You would rather like 3 mana 2/3 ward. But Necromancy is a good addition, I would say. It's a great arena card, because 2 damage to an enemy follower always matters in arena, because you are trading a lot, and you can finish off the big follower instead of like evolving into it or trading another of your big followers into it. And in constructed, the you can really get like 4 Necromancy bar turn 3. You play Skull Beast, you play Spartoid Sergeant, they both die, they both give you 2 shadows. You have the 4 Necromancy on turn 3, but you will not always get those, and you will not always have a target for your Feathered Patroller if you traded 2 minions already by turn 3, and the Necromancy in late game will not really matter much. So overall, I'm not a big fan of this card. I would say it's a 3 out of 10 in constructed. Low health ward doesn't matter, like 2-drops kill it. Even some 1-drops may in the future kill it, but I'm not sure if we'll see 2 attack 1-drops. They may be a bit against the side game's strategy of aggro decks. I hope we won't see them, but we definitely have some 1-drops that can get conditional buffs. Like, for example, imagine if we had a 1-drop that says, for example, if you summon a more expensive follower, so something above 1 mana, gain +1 attack this turn, and that can only occur once a turn, or something like that. That would probably be still too aggressive for side games, but we'll see. In Arena, you probably want to pick it, like, it's a powerful effect of Ward. Like, Ward is very good in Arena in late game, because you can, like, steer the trades when you have a lot of wards, and Necromancy 4, as I said, deal 2 damage will always matter in Arena. Next up, we have Damos, Oracle of Inquiry. 3 mana 3/2 for Heavencraft. Whenever an enemy follower attacks, destroy that follower at the end of opponent's turn. This looks really powerful. Like, this is, you know, you may say, this is so OP, this is literally 3 mana 3/2 Bane. Well, not really, because it can get spell down easily. It can trade for a 2-drop. It is not really powerful in late game, because in late game usually people have some removal. It is really good if you are playing versus Control Sword. They have a lot of big minions and not that much of removal. So yeah, a lot of minions will die on it. It's probably the best in like Guardian Sun deck, when you can hide it behind a lot of wards. So your opponent is forced into trading into the wards, and then their minions die. So this basically then, if you have a ward minions, it says, give your ward minion Bane, because something attacks into it, and your ward minion will kill it at the end of the turn. Something like that, yeah? So overall, I don't really like this card. In Arena, it's a 3 mana 3/2, so it's solid enough, and you know, you can get some guaranteed kills in late game on Arena, so on Arena definitely pick it. In Constructed, I would rather abstain from playing this. Like, that, it's not really that good. The effect may seem powerful, but the low health total kind of, you know, takes it out of the consideration for Constructed play. Next up we have Blitz Rancer, that is very simple card, 3 mana, 3 to rush, for Swordcraft. Not really a lot to talk about the effect, like... it is simply a rush, everyone knows what rush is. You can attack enemy units the turn you played this card, or the turn this card enters the battlefield. And how good is it? In Constructed, not really. It always gets outshined by Novice Trooper, which can Storm, has one less attack, but on turn 3 2 attack is usually enough, and you can Storm face, you cannot rush face. In Arena though, this is better than Novice Trooper, because in Arena you want to trade, and one additional attack lets you trade higher, right? You can trade up for like 4 drops. Novice Trooper will never trade for 4 drops. You can even trade for some 5 drops, you know, it's Arena, low health, 5 drops will happen, even 6 drops. There are 6 drops with 3 HP. And the biggest problem of this card is that it's literally a spell, because you want to rush it into minions, that's what rush is for. It's literally a spell that gets blocked by Taunt. So, not really a big fan of the card in Constructed, but definitely pick it in Arena. We have a lot of good Arena cards in this batch of cards. Alright, Forest Gigas, 7 mana, 1/7 for Forest Craft. It has Ward and Fanfare, gain plus X plus 0 when X equals to the number of cards in your hands. So the effect is almost the same as Master of Canopies, but it doesn't get HP, but it has much higher base HP. And it has Ward. What is the problem with it? It's 7 mana, so 1 more expensive than Master of Canopies. Though it has Ward, so maybe it's better versus aggro, but the biggest problem with Master of Canopies and Forest Gigas share is that they are very expensive without immediate impact, and they can get wrecked by Dance of Death or Execution or other 5 mana removals. Even some less expensive removals from, you know, like Giant Slayer or something like that. In Arena though, these removals are pretty rare, so this card is probably even better than the Master of Canopies in Arena. And also it's bronze, so you will see it much more often. And it is also some late game that Forest needed. Forest did not have a solid 7 drop for Arena, except for the Baal. I think his name is Baal. The 7 mana 5/5 that gives you 2 0 cost fairy. But overall, I don't think this will make a cut in Constructed, mostly because, as I said, you can easily remove it. And especially if we see control meta, you will not be playing cards like this, because there will be a lot of control decks that can easily deal with them. The only merit to play it in Constructed is like that Cygames is pushing the Hand Forest archetype a lot. And right now we have nice little curve with Hand Forest. You have EPM, you have, let's say, Fairy Circle, you have Elf Whisperer, you have Ancient Elf to boost your hand size, you have EPM, I mean Elven Princess Mage, to get you 2 0 cost fairies. Then you have Will of the Forest, which works well with your full hand. Then you have Master of Canopies, then you have Forest Gigas, and on 9 you have Silverbolt. So you can craft a really good curve with your hand size, but the problem with this curve is that the 6 and 7 are not immediate impact plays, so they are very vulnerable to removals. And even aggro plays now removals with Dance of Death, so I don't think this will be a competitive deck, but we'll definitely try to make it work. Maybe do something like tempo hand deck, like tempo deck with... So something like old combo deck. Old combo deck relied on Fairy Princess, Fairy Dancer, and Silverbolt. These were your like most important cards. The rest of the deck was similar to tempo, but you played a lot of the combo effects like Elf Metallurgist and stuff. We also get the Mahaes, which is the 6 mana 5/5 with Ward that from combo deals 2 damage to every single opponent. So this also fits in the deck, but this is better than Master of Canopies, and this could be your 8 drop because you play 2 fairies, but then again you want to combo it with EPM and play it on 6 as a pseudo Themis Decree. Right, let's move on. Goblin Breaker Tina, that is actually our almost last card. We have one more. 4 mana 3/4 gold for neutral, that from evolution deals 2 damage to an enemy follower, so very weak effect, but it's also, guys, only +1/+1, so like every other form drop evolution card. But if you target a neutral follower, you deal 5 damage instead. There is not really much to talk about this effect. The only problem is that you don't see a lot of neutral cards that have 5 HP and cannot be dealt with like Dragon Warrior or Priest of the Cudgel. So overall I don't like this card. In Arena it may be solid, but in Arena you have only 4 neutral cards per deck, and this is one of the neutral cards. So you would have to be really lucky to get it to work in Arena. I would say it's a pretty bad card, but if you get it and you are playing on heavy budget, it may serve you well. But then again, the class evolution cards are better, and they are like class cards. You don't have to craft them, and they are silvers. So yeah, usually this card will not see play. Unless we see a powerful neutral cards deck, like something that says your neutral cards have +1/+1 or something like that. The kind of amulet. Then we would see neutral decks being played, and then this card would be included in this deck and would be included as a deck against this deck. Our last card is Executioner Axe, the 1-mana spell for Bloodcraft that gives an allied follower rush, and enchants 4, then give it +2/+2. Basically it's 4-mana evolution that doesn't activate evolution effects, but also doesn't take the option to evolve your follower, but you know what I mean. Evolution I don't think is worth as much as 4 mana, but then again we have 3 mana give +2/+2 to a minion in form of Forged Weaponry, and if we made it enchants 4, it would be simple power creep over the Forged Weaponry. And also the effect is stronger than Forged Weaponry, so I guess it's alright to give it a bit more cost. So overall, great arena card, really bad constructed card. Like, I don't even see when do you play it in constructed. You could say, yeah, like you can play Furia with Rush for 9 mana, that is pretty solid, but you really play the Executioner Axe in your deck just to give a rush to Furia that you probably are not playing as a 3 copies I mean in the deck anyway. Like this is some kind of really niche card that probably will never work in your deck, and if it will work this one time in like say 10 games, you will only get to kill 1 minion, and it's not even for free. You will lose HP on your bigger minion. In Arena though, you can save your evolution points basically, because in late game often you use evolution basically only for rush. You don't really need that +2/+2 for a trade. And this is 1 mana rush on a cost of 1 card, sure, but this is basically additional evolution point. And in Arena, evolution points are so important that it makes Olivia the single best card in Arena. So this is a bronze card that gives you additional evolution point, and it's a big buff to Blood in Arena. And Blood really needs buffs in Arena, because right now they are struggling because most of their cards are self-harm, and you cannot draft consistent healing because it's mostly golds. And you are in pretty bad spot because of that. Alright, that will cut it for the video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out my Twitch channel, you can find the link down in the description. If you have any further question, it would be best to address me there. Peace out.